And we are back in the TechLounge studio, the very last hour of the very first day, the Mobile World Congress. Well, at least for us, that's the very first day. We are live streaming here from the TechLounge studio at the Intel booth in Hall 3 in beautiful Barcelona. I'm so glad to have Bill Pearson and Scott Apeland over here, two guys from the Intel software group, and is specialized on IoT, of course, and the developers program that you announced back in IDF, September 2014, last year.
That's right. Yeah, the IoT developer program was just launched at IDF, and it's off and running now. We got a lot of activities happening in that area.
So you know what? Scott told me, Bill, that you are just traveling all over the place to do, to pitch the IoT developers program. I'm pretty sure you're also doing events and hackathons and all of this. You have the best job in the world.
Absolutely. So we put together a roadshow to bring the technology out to developers. We wanted to put it in their hands, right? Give them the boards, the sensors, the accessories, everything they need, plus all the software. So we do these 2-day events. We do them in cities around the world. We did 10 of them in Q4 alone of last year, right? So 3 months. We have another 20 planned this year, and we're hitting every geography and a whole bunch of different countries, getting tons of developers. The coolest thing, though, is not what we're giving them, but it's what they're building with it.
Yeah.
These guys have been coming out with amazing projects. We saw remote pet monitoring things. We've seen people analyze plant soil content. Tons of really cool stuff.
You know, back in January 2014 during your CES keynote, when you were launching Edison, I was showing it for the very first time. I think, in my opinion, this was the huge announcement of CES 2014, because showing me how committed you are and what you want to do with the Internet of Things, and that you're really now getting serious. I mean, a whole computer on the size of an SD card right now, and now you can just bring this to the developers, you can bring this to the hackers, you can bring this to the makers, and you can see what they're doing with it. This must be exciting.
It is exciting. In fact, one thing I noticed, Galileo was interesting. People love that. When Edison came out, the interest just spiked. Everybody wanted one when they got their hands on it. Even last night I was at IoT Stars event, and we were telling the jury what we were going to give for prizes for the winners, and they said, "Can I have one?"
Scott, also during IDF, at your Intel Developers Forum in September, on the show floor, there was a huge section about, a new breed of developers and makers getting their hands on new platforms and building amazing things. I remember these drone guys.
Oh, yeah.
There was a kind of ghost drone that was following you and filming you. That was amazing.
Yeah, in fact, you mentioned that there's a new breed of developers. Intel has actually taken a really conscious decision to shift to attract new developers. In the past, we've been working with PC developers, server developers, Windows developers, but the industry's changed and moved, and now we've moved with it, so we're really going after the mobile developers, the makers, totally different audience of guys, and seeing them respond pretty well. Things that we offer are tools like the XDK, which is a really easy-to-use HTML5 toolkit. All of a sudden, we're attracting a new breed of developers there, too. So the world's changed a little bit.
And it sounds for a lot of people in the audience and people that are watching us right now, it kind of sounds new that Intel is doing all of this. I remember you've already had a booth over here like 5 or 6 years ago for the Intel Developers Program. Huh? You're doing software for a very, very long time. You're embracing the developers community for a very long time.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people don't know about it, but we've had a developer program for 10 plus years, maybe 15, and worked with millions and millions of developers. And we have the Intel Developer Zone, which is our main portal for working with developers on there. There people can find SDKs, tools, training, support, forums, and all that. So it covers all the platforms, all the technologies that Intel offers. And we're just trying to adopt to the new needs of developers as it changes.
So, I mean, we have mobile, we see what's happening in the mobile space. Like about 2 years or 2.5 years ago, you introduced the WheelSense technology. You started also a developer challenge, the Ultimate Coder Challenge at that time. It was about perceptual computing. And at that time, the camera was like the size of a proper webcam for your desktop or for your notebook. Like it was pretty big, right?
Yeah.
And then I remembered Kirk Skaugen was showing, during Computex 2013 in summer, he was showing a module for a laptop. And now we're talking about getting these camera modules in a tablet. We've seen the thinnest tablet in the world with a new Dell during IDF last year. And now we're talking about getting this into smartphones, right? This happened in less than 2 years.
That's right. When we first came out with it, it was this big bulky camera you stick on the top of a laptop, and our goal always was to get it integrated into the bezel and make it really just a really slim, low-cost solution. We got early adopter developers to work with us and experiment and try to do things with it. And finally now, I guess finally, it's only been 2 years, we're seeing this going into mainstream tablets, Ultrabooks or 2-in-1s, and then phones really soon as well. So the first tablet that's out right now that has a world-facing camera is really slick. I mean, the things you can do with that to actually have the depth added to your photos when you take those, and then the filtering and different editing you can do based on depth now is really fun.
Yeah. Well, Bill, doing all these road shows, and if I would compare, let's say, this era of hardware that we are in right now, the technology that is available for us, if I would compare this to like 10 years ago, right, to make developers excited about new technologies, that's on a whole different level right now.
It is,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's neat because when we bring out, say, new RealSense or new IoT technology to developers, we find that they're hungry for it. Yeah. They're willing to try it out, and most importantly, they're willing to give us feedback about it. So we brought, example with RealSense, we brought out these workshops. We had developers trying it and using it. They gave us early feedback on the SDK, which allowed us to improve it, continually make it better. I think that's how things have ramped so quickly.
Yeah, and once again, as you said, right, as soon as you're showing a module or a platform like Edison, everybody goes, wow.
Yes.
Because you immediately starting to think and you imagine, what can I do with it? I can squeeze it in here, it can go in there, right? It's just a whole new world is opening right in front of you.
Absolutely. It feels very exciting. Like we're in a really fast pace of change, but we're also in a place where things are really starting to change quite a bit. So developers are becoming hardware hackers, and hardware hackers are becoming developers, and all of a sudden, you've got this lot more capability and a lot more ability to do things in really small packages that you could ever do before.
And it was kind of hard to do that 10 years ago with an ATX motherboard.
Yes, it was.
So this changed completely.
I'll just add one thing that I'm looking forward to personally is we're wrapping up our latest contest around RealSense, and so we're in the judging stage right now. We had 400 or 500 submissions of interesting, innovative uses of RealSense technology. So the winners will come out in April. We'll announce those, and I can't wait to see what new things they found that they can do with the RealSense camera. So that'll be posted on our developer zone. People can check those out, and I think they'll be inspired on different things that they can use for this technology.
I remember last year you did a hackathon over here at Mobile World Congress, and I saw the queue out there, right? So people were just waiting all around the building, the block, and it's just, I think this is where we can really see, that you steered something up, that you built up some momentum, and once again that you kind of excite this new breed of developers. Are these events, are these roadshows also kind of talent pool for you guys, that you can just see new talents, whether it's on the hardware side, because you're also embracing the hackers, the modders, the makers, but also on the software side?
Yes, the talent's amazing that we see there. And one way we found that we can use this talent is these developers get so passionate. They come to a hackathon, they learn the skills, and they're excited about the create. They want to tell other developers about it. So we actually started a new program called the Innovator Program, where we take these guys that are excited and passionate about it, and we'll fly them to different events so they can train and talk to other developers and show them what they bought or what they created. And so now this is it's a kind of a win-win for both, because they love talking about it and flying around to fun places and showing developers, and we get the word out more broadly.
We've had Mark Paus over here from Spain, and he's in your Innovator Program, and he was talking about this. And of course, he was also talking about Edison and what they're doing with this. And once again, to see how passionate they are about this, because I remember all these case mods, and people are trying to get a mini ITX mainboard into a toaster or into a Millennium Falcon model, right? If I would have told those guys, like, 15 years from now, you're getting a main board that's this big, and it comes with memory on there, and there's an SoC on there, right? Imagine what you can build then, right? And this is happening, and it's getting so many different industries together now working on projects, and that's what I really love. So, I mean, what's next for you guys on the roadmap? Now that we have Edison in the market, now that we're talking about all of, I mean, Internet of Things. It always seems to be like a buzzword. We have embedded computing is in the DNA of Intel. I mean, you've been building highly integrated chipsets for the last 40 years, right? So it kind of brings you back to the root of it all.
It does. It does. You know, I think what's next is really up to developers. What are they going to create? So we've taken things and made them smaller and smaller and more powerful, and I think that trend's going to continue. You've seen some of the announcements there. We're also looking at, you know, how do you connect developers to the cloud, and then how do you start connecting all of the things that are unconnected today? So there's all these great surveys that talk about, you know, billions of devices, and most of those are unconnected. I'm sure you've seen the data. So as these things start getting connected, as you said, somebody sticks an Edison inside their toaster. We saw a 3D food printer last night at the IoT Stars that you know, power it with an Edison, and you've got this amazing device that didn't exist 6 months ago, but certainly didn't exist 10 years ago. So, you know, developers are going to be able to connect everything that needs to be connected, and then collect the data, stick it in the cloud, and all of a sudden you have this amazing ability to predict things that can happen, to analyze and get artificial intelligence about, you know, not just the temperature in my house, but lighting, about mood, about music, etc. So, I mean, really the sky's the limit, I think, but it depends on how people take what we give them and really put it to use.
Wasn't mobile in general a real enabler for this kind of development that really pushed Intel into this market because they knew that they had to do it? And this is the outcome, what we can see right now, because Edison is definitely not something that, I mean, hackers and developers are not building smartphones on top of Edison. They are just thinking way beyond this.
Yeah, it did put us in the mode, you know, looking at mobile put us in the mode of what's next. And as we started looking at what's next, we saw Internet of Things. And there's a variety of different investments that we're making, obviously. But with Internet of Things, the idea is how do you help developers really be there as things are developing? So we don't know which solutions, which segments, which markets are taking off, but we want to make sure Intel's at the center of that and that we really help all of those developers realize their dreams, but do it on Intel.
How small can it get? What do you think?
I see no end in sight to how small things can get.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I totally agree with you. So, as I said, you know, I know you guys for many years, but to see how all of this developed, especially in the last 2 years, I remember when Intel was entering the mobile market with their own hardware, with their own silicon, and the challenges. Think about when we're talking about Android, compatibility issues at the beginning, and now there's nothing at all, right? Intel really delivered here. And to see how competitive the Intel silicon is right now in smartphones, in tablets. Last year, over 40 million tablets with x86 shipped into the market, which is a huge portion of the tablet market. And now we're bringing this into the Internet of Things world. So, as I said, what's next? What could be the next big thing?
Take that.
What's next? Who knows? IoT has definitely got a long ways to go. We're not there yet. So if you talk about what's next, I think the next 10 years, IoT is going to be huge for us. And you look at the wearables and all the industrial type of applications there. Huge opportunity for software developers, maybe even more of an opportunity than has been in mobile, right? Because of all the places you can put software. And then you talk about all the data that starts being collected, and you opportunities to mine that data and present that data to users and let them control their world with that. So I got to believe that that's going to keep us busy for quite a while.
What about you, Bill? Do you think that the Internet of Things is is kind of keeping us busy for the next decade or so.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're just getting started, and I don't think any of us have any idea what it's going to turn into, how big it's going to get. So we see all the projections, and they're just projections. But I think the reality is it's going to go somewhere, and it's going to keep us busy. But I really have no sense of how big, and I think the sky's the limit, for, like I said before, for all of us as we're looking at what can I do with this when I have all of the data, when I have all these small devices that are now connected, so much possibility. Yeah, it's going to be a long time before we run out of things to do there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to see what kind of impact it has on very, very traditional industries. Yeah, when we're talking about the automotive industry, out of a sudden cars are turning into supercomputers. Yeah. When we're looking at our smart homes, and we've seen the term smart home is just so old. I've seen my first connected home from Microsoft like 12 years ago. Yeah. Right? And this is now really kicking off. You have your own little portal on Amazon.com for smart home appliances and all of this, right? Yeah. So, and households are buying into this. And the smart cities are developing. Yeah. Barcelona is a good example for this. They are doing a couple of really smart things. And all this, everything is getting connected together, and we're creating the seamless experience all over different platforms. Yeah. And to see all of this finally happening right now. This is a little bit like 20 years ago, this would have been something that you probably would see in a science fiction movie.
It would be.
And now it's happening,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And right in front of us, and it's happening faster and faster. And I'm sure that when you're doing these roadshows and when you're doing these hackathons, to see those guys that grew up in this connected world, what kind of ideas they have, right? Because all three of us, we grew up in, I always call it Analogistan, and now we're living in Digitalia.
Yes, yes.
So we saw this shift and transition happening, right?
Yeah.
But those guys that never experienced a world without the internet, without being connected to your friends constantly, they have a completely different perspective on this.
Yes. Yes, which is great, because that means they're going to think of new things that, the stuff that we did will certainly happen. The things that we thought of will certainly happen, but they're going to think of new things that we've never even dreamed of.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for showing up over here. I know we've been a little bit late.
No problem. Yeah.
But it's great to see what you're doing with it, and to see where you were coming from, and just to see this passion and excitement that you generated in this developer community. So we're going to have a short break of some 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to switch over to our very last session. It's Mark Hocking, and we're going to talk about security, and we're talking about McAfee. As you know, McAfee is also part of Intel right now. So we're going to be back in like 5 minutes, have another 30 minutes, and then it's going to be the last session of the day.